This conference will now be recorded.
All right, guys, let's get started here. So, first, prior to like starting off with the DevOps course content and stuff, so first we'll understand like what exactly is the software development lifecycle and how DevOps has impacted the scope of software development lifecycle, or how DevOps have helped in, I would say, like implementing software development lifecycle in a better way. Okay. So in software development lifecycle, so you would have various phases like plan, code, build, test, release, operate, monitor. Okay, so these are the sections that you have. You have deploy as well. I must start on that. So so when you get into any corporate company, right, you would come across these terms like they will say dev team, operations team, or admins. Okay, so like so the dev team is basically the guys who are involved in development. Okay, who are coders. And then you have the testing team as well. So they are the people who test your applications and then tell you that if application is not working as per the functionality, then they will report back to the developers. And then you have like monitoring team as well, who would be monitoring your infrastructure and your application servers, database servers. So wherever there's a requirement for monitoring, right, all of that will be handled by the monitoring team. And then you would have a set of I would say release managers. You would have some roles called as problem managers. You have change managers. So depending on the budget of the organization and then the way the project is being implemented, some roles may exist or may not exist, which I've just specified, like the problem manager, change manager, and all these things, right? They may or may not exist as per the implementation of a given project. So, and when it comes to the operate part, right, you come across your Linux admins, Windows admins, and let's say if a company is using the SharePoint or any tools like Salesforce or anything, right, you'll come across all these Salesforce admins, okay, and then database admins. So you will come across various admin related roles under the operate section. All right. So, uh, so the role of plan here is to get the business requirement from the respective business owners and then translate those business requirement into the how to build the apps. Okay, or just help the developers understand like what the business is expecting and then what has to be implemented or what changes have to be done to I would say to meet the business requirement. I would say. Okay. So, in plan phase, you can have either a project manager or a business analyst who would be interacting with the business owners, and uh, then they would gather the requirements and what exactly they need, and then they will be talking to the developers. So the role of the developer is to code. Okay, so they have to do coding. So the coding can be in anything like .NET, Java, C Sharp, any programming language, Python, Node.js, anything. So it can be anything depending on the implementation or the kind of app they're building. And then once the code is ready, right, you have the build phase to package your application code, and then test is to test the application code which has been deployed onto the I would say the dev environment or the UAT environment, and then you have release, deploy, operate, and monitor. So here the plan and code phase are something which you cannot automate. Okay. But on the operation side and on the build, test, release, and deploy, these sections you can automate by using these DevOps tools. So, as part of this course, we'll be seeing how we would be automating the process of build, test, release, and deploy. And then on the operations end as well, we'll see some tools like Ansible and Terraform, which are used for, I would say, implementing automation in cloud as well as to implement configuration management too. Okay. So that's what we'll be covering here. So, and how DevOps has helped in optimizing your software development lifecycle is basically like the number of people involved in the project have reduced. Okay, it may not be up to a very drastic extent because The number of folks required again depends on the kind of applications that are being used in a project. But wherever there's automation required, that has been implemented by using these DevOps tools. Okay, that is something that is taking place, and testing is, I wouldn't say completely obsolete, but they have kind of automated testing of applications too. So that is something that has been done. And then, so the process of build, test, and release and deploy, right? This whole part has been automated by using these DevOps tools. So in that way, so the project implementation timeline has come down, and then I would say the resource cost has come down, and overall project cost has come down. So in that way, these DevOps tools have impacted in implementing automation, and then on top of it, like they are helping organization to automate various things as and when are required. Okay. So that's the use case of these DevOps tools, and like there are various DevOps tools. Okay, I cannot guarantee that like only this tool will be used in a given organization. No, okay, I cannot really guarantee that because there are various DevOps tools, and everyone is using something different. It ultimately depends on the architect of the organization to decide upon like which tool they want to go with. And sometimes some organizations go with the licensed tools, sometimes they don't go with the licensed tools depending on the nature of the organization that they have. Okay, so that's what we have. So that's the implementation of DevOps in a software development lifecycle, right? So now let's talk about the course content which we'll be covering. So this is a course content here. So all the tools that we'll be looking at, right, they'll be on Linux itself. So if you guys are well versed with Linux, it's all right. But if you're not, then I'll be anyways covering some basics of Linux as part of this course. And then after that, so here in Linux, we'll be looking at like topics like user management, package management, some generic commands related to, like I would say, checking the process on the server, something related to the system administration. Okay, so we'll look into those. And then some commands related to networking. So whatever is required for you to get started with this course, right? I will try to cover all of them. So that's what will be covered in the next part. And then the next one is Git. So Git is basically a source code management repository. So we'll see the setup of a Git repo in github.com. And then we'll see how we can interact with a remote Git repository from the local Git repo. Okay. And then there are various Git commands. So we'll go through all of them and we'll understand their usage, their implementation, and we'll go through various examples as well. And apart from that, the next one is Ansible. So Ansible is basically a configuration management tool, and then and apart from it, it's basically used for provisioning the infrastructure and cloud platform as well. So here in Ansible, like we'll see the installation configuration of Ansible, and then we'll see like how Ansible can be used for, I would say, like creating playbooks, which are used for managing configuration across various servers. Okay. So when I say configuration, it's primarily like if you want to install a specific software on 100 servers. Okay. So if you take the manual route, then in that case, you need to log into each and every server and then do the installation. But if you go with Ansible, right, you need not do that. You write a playbook and you define in the playbook like what has to be done, and then you test your playbook on a given server, and then you can replicate the same thing across let's say 100 servers, as just as I specified, right? So the same thing can be replicated across 100 servers, wherein like the process of a given software installation, right, it can be defined in a playbook, and the same thing can be rolled out on 100 servers. So here you are saving a lot of time in the process of installation of a given software. So that's where it comes in handy. So, and in Ansible we have various topics like modules, playbooks, and roles. So we'll cover all of that. And then the next thing that we'll look at is Tomcat server. So Tomcat server is basically an application server that we have. So here the requirement for this topic here is like we'll be doing some automated application deployments. So for that, we'll be using the Tomcat server. So here we'll see the installation and configuration of Tomcat, and then we'll see how applications can be deployed onto the Tomcat server. All right. So that's something that we'll cover. And then the other one is Nexus Artifactory Repository. So here, the purpose of using Nexus is to use Nexus as a Docker private registry. So Nexus is a Artifactory software. So first, let me explain the purpose of the Artifactory softwares or the meaning of the term artifact here. So artifacts are generally the files which are generated by a set of softwares. Okay. So like every software would generate some or the other file, which can be a deployable file or which can be some file uh, which has some specific purpose. Okay. So in that event, you if you want to version those files and then store it in a given repo, then Artifactory is the one which can help you do that. So Nexus is one Artifactory software. You have another Artifactory software called as JFrog, and then you have GitHub packages, which is another Artifactory software that you can use. So the purpose of using Nexus here is a Docker private registry where we'll be storing Docker images. Okay. So we'll be creating custom Docker images, and then those images will be storing it in the Nexus Artifactory repository. Okay. So that's the purpose here. And then after that, the next topic that we'll look at is Jenkins. So Jenkins is one of the important tools here. So in Jenkins, like we'll be seeing the administration part of Jenkins, where we'll install and manage Jenkins, and then we'll implement the user management in Jenkins. And we'll talk about the usage of plugins, how they're used, how they what plugins are required for the generic implementation. So we'll look at that, and then we'll see how we can build a Jenkins job, and we'll see the integration of various DevOps tools that we're discussing in our course, right? So we'll see the integration of various DevOps tools with Jenkins, and then we have topics like views, folders, pipeline jobs. Okay, so all of these are the topics that we'll cover in Jenkins. And the important part, which I referred to earlier in the software development lifecycle, where we will be automating the deployment pipeline, right? So that is implemented through Jenkins. Okay, so in that scenario, we'll be using Tomcat as our application server, and then we'll automate the complete process of packaging the application and then deploying the application onto the application server by using Jenkins. So that's where we'll be implementing Jenkins. And the other part is Docker. So Docker is a lightweight version of a virtual machine, and then it's easier to manage, and uh, you can basically like easy to create and configure. So that's the reason like everyone is nowadays migrating to Docker containers, where wherever there's a feasibility to containerize a given application, right? They're trying to containerize their application and then deploy it on either Kubernetes or let's say like there are other platforms as well where you can deploy your application in the form of containers. So we'll see the installation and configuration of Docker, and then we'll see like how to create Docker containers, Docker images, and then there are various other topics in Docker like Docker volumes, and then Docker networking, Docker file, and Docker compose. So Dockerfile is used to create custom Docker images. So so an image is basically a plain copy, or I would say like an operating system image. Okay, so just as you have your Windows 10 image or macOS operating system image, right? So in a similar fashion in Docker as well, these images are copies of operating systems. Okay, so which can be loaded and then run on a Docker environment. Okay, so which can be used to create a container. So that's the way the containers are built. So here, if you wish to create a custom image, then you can go for the Docker file by using a script. And the other option is Docker Compose, so which is used to create containers, but again through a script. So in the first phase, we'll see how we can manually create containers and images. And then in the next phase, we'll see how we can create containers and images through a script. So that is what we'll cover there. And the next topic is your Kubernetes, which is basically your, I would say, high availability solution for containers. So here in Kubernetes, we have different topics like pods, deployments, services, then application deployment lifecycle, and then we'll see some examples of microservice application deployments as well. So these are the topics that we'll cover, and then we'll see the installation and configuration of Kubernetes too. So how we can set up a Kubernetes cluster, we'll look at that. And the next topic that we'll cover is Nagios. So Nagios is a monitoring tool. So here, as part of this topic, we'll see the installation and configuration of Nagios, and then how user management can be implemented in Nagios. And then we'll be monitoring a Linux server and a Tomcat server by using Nagios. Okay. So Nagios has a wide range of implementation. You can monitor various application servers, database servers, routers, switches, log monitoring. Various things can be implemented by Nagios, but in the interest of time, we'll cover the basic implementation of Nagios for monitoring a Linux target and Tomcat server as well. Okay. And the final topic that we have is Terraform. So Terraform is basically a multi-cloud, I would say, cloud provisioning tool. So you might have come across the term IAC, which stands for Infrastructure as Code. So if you want to provision any resources in any cloud platform, so it can be like AWS, Azure, or GCP, or it supports even some other cloud platforms as well, the private cloud players, which are small cloud players. So if you wish to like provision infrastructure in any of these cloud platforms, then you can use Terraform for that. So the advantage is it can be used across the board across various cloud platforms, and it has some other support for like tools like Docker and Kubernetes. So you can even manage Kubernetes and Docker by using Terraform. So in Terraform, we'll look at the installation and configuration of Terraform, and then we'll see like Terraform variables, commands, modules, remote state, and data sources. So these are the topics that we'll cover. And apart from that, the implementation of Terraform we'll look at in AWS. Okay. So, in terms of AWS, right, I'll be helping you guys in setting up your accounts in AWS, and then how to provision EC2 instance, and then how to set up users in IAM. So basic stuff related to AWS I'll explain, because that would be a prerequisite for you for Terraform as well. So that's the reason we'll cover some basics of AWS as well in this course. Okay. So that's the outline for the course. So any questions from anyone? Any of you? Anything related to the course content or anything else? No? Fine then. So let's get started with our session here. So just give me a minute. So today we'll have a brief session related to Linux. So we'll just cover that and then we'll head on to the other topics in tomorrow's session. Right. So this is the Amazon Linux operating system, and the server is running on Amazon EC2 cloud. Okay. So basically, your server is a virtual machine. So the server that you're looking at, it's a VM running on EC2. Okay, that's what we have.
I have a question, please.
Yeah, Joe, tell me.
Can you make your font a little bit bigger, ma'am? I'm sorry because I cannot really see that. It's kind of small.
Okay, 1 second. Is it okay now?
Yeah, actually, I expanded it, so it's okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, you have to expand in this go-to meeting because,
Yeah,
like,
I just did that, so it's okay. It's all right.
yeah, so that is I mean, issue I would say in this go-to meeting because some people face a lot of difficulty understanding that in the initial phase. Okay. So there's a server which is running on EC2 in AWS, and so it's running an Amazon Linux 2 operating system here. So we'll start with basic Linux commands, and then we'll proceed with the whatever topics are there in the subsequent sessions. So the first command that we'll look at is uname-a. So this will print the complete system information, like what exactly is the operating system that you're using, what is the host name, kernel version, date. So all of that information will be given by this uname command. So actually, like if you are a Windows user, right, then you wouldn't be familiar with this because you generally use the GUI. So generally for the Linux systems as well, you do have the GUI in place, but the thing is like GUI mode is not so rich in case of Linux. Okay, so it's just basic graphics that you would come across. So that's the reason everyone tries to use the terminal. So this is generally termed as console or terminal in Linux. Okay, so the UI that you're looking at where you're typing in your commands is termed as console or terminal in Linux in general. So this command uname-a, it will print everything, all the information here. And if you are not familiar with any specific command in Linux, let's consider. Okay, then you run the command man uname. So man stands for manual, and then so uname is your command. So manual of a given command. So let's say if you're not familiar with a given option for a command, right? Then you can simply type in man uname, and it will open a page for you. So where it will tell you like what the command is exactly about, and then what all options are available, okay, for the given command. So all that information would be displayed by using the uname command here, or basically the man page. So these are generally termed as man pages, okay, where you get the complete information related to the command and the relevant options as well. Okay. So you can scroll down by using the down arrow on your keyboard, and then if you want to move up, you can just move up. Okay. And if you want to come out of it, just press Q on your keyboard. It will quit out of the page. So now if you say uname hyphen n, it will just print the node name here. Okay. You can see this is a node name, and then if you do a uname hyphen r, it will print the kernel release here. Okay. So in this way, like uname hyphen a will print everything, but if you want smaller chunks of it, then you can give the relevant uname option, uname command with the relevant options there. Okay. And apart from that, let's proceed further with some more commands here. So date command is simply used to print the date. And you have cal command to print the calendar. Okay. And if you do a cal hyphen 3, this will print the previous month's calendar, current month's calendar, and the upcoming month's calendar. Okay. And then you have another command called as who am I. So this will return the user with which you are logged in. Okay. And then there's a command called as w. So this W command generally refers to what. Okay, that's the full form of W. Or so here it will tell you like what is the current time. So here you can see in the date, if you see here, the current time is 1:36 in UTC. So the same timing you're looking at here, and then the server has been up since last 5 minutes. Okay. And then one user is logged in, so it's giving you the user details as well, from where he has logged in, what's his IP address, the username. So all the information has been provided here. And there's a command called as uptime. So uptime also pretty much provides you the same information. So, but it will just tell you the time, how long the server has been up and running. Okay. So this uptime command is useful in certain cases to understand like whether the server was actually rebooted or not. So there are some events where your server may not be reachable. So there are two instances: either there would be a server reboot, or there may be a network issue, or there may be a DNS issue. So let's say after 30 minutes or 1 hour, your server, you got access to the server again, but you want to understand like what exactly happened. So in that case, you can run this command and see whether the server was rebooted by any chance. Okay. So if the server was rebooted, then it would say like up since last 5 minutes or something. If the first server was not rebooted, then if your server has been running since last 30 days or let's say 6 months, I'll tell you like up since 6 months and so many days. Okay, it will give you that information. So in that way, you will understand like whether the given server was actually rebooted or not. Okay. So that's where this command comes in really handy. And then there's another command called as last reboot. So this command will tell you the history of a reboot. So like how long the server was run earlier, and then after that, like whether it was then basically like it'll tell you the timeline. So this server was run on or basically it was started on Jan 9th, and then it ran for 10 hours at that time, and then it was stopped again, and then later it was started again just now 7 minutes ago. Okay. So in that way, like you can get the historical reboot information about a given server as well. So these commands, they come in handy in certain cases. So that's the reason I'm just giving it to you here. All right. So any questions here? Anyone? No. All right. So after this, so let's talk about the user management in Linux. So when I say user management, like generally, like if you are a Windows user, right, you know that the or admin is the super user for Windows. So and as admin, it's the administrator. So administrator is the super user for the Windows machine. In a similar fashion for the Linux machine as well, root is the super user. Okay. So currently I'm logged in as EC2 user, but generally the process of creating the users, changing permissions, and everything is handled by the root user. But not every time you can provide a user with a password for root, right? Like you cannot distribute the password for the root user to everyone. No. So in that event, what you can do is you can delegate certain permissions, okay, to execute certain root related commands to certain set of users on a given server. So let's say there are three users, user one, two, and three. So you can delegate some permissions to create, let's say, allow user one to like manage storage on a user on a given server, and then allow user two to take care of the user management and then file permissions. And similarly, user three can be delegated with some root related responsibility. So in that way, like you're not you're securing your root users credentials, and then you're not distributing it across the board. Okay, so generally when you go to a corporate setup, right, you would have some kind of a portal. Okay, so wherein you would get access to the root related passwords in certain cases through that portal. And sometimes, if it's a small team, right, then they would know the password. So, but in certain cases, like it's not a good practice to like distribute the passwords among the users, or let's say the admins as well. So that's the reason whoever is the admin, they will delegate the permissions to a given user. So that process of delegating the permissions is done through the sudo's group. Okay. So we'll talk about sudo probably in next session, but for now, just remember that by using or basically by incorporating a user as part of the sudo's group, uh, a given user can be provided with certain root related permissions. Okay. So in this case, EC2 user is a part of the sudo's group. Okay. So the spelling of sudo is sudo. Okay, sudo. So sudoers is basically sudoers, sudoers group. So there'll be a file in which you can add a user to the sudoers group and then define what the user can do. And depending on whatever you define, the user will be able to perform certain actions. Okay. So in this case, this EC2 user is a part of the sudoers group. So now we'll see the process of creating the users here. Okay. So generally the user creation has to be done by the root user, but we are doing it through the EC2 user. So when a user is part of the sudo's group, right? If you just say user add, it's simply saying permission denied. So the reason for that is because your EC2 user is not having the right permissions to run the user add command. Okay. Now, but instead, if you just do a sudo user add u1, in this event, the user has been created. Okay. So you can see that the user has been created, and then if you do a sudo passwd u1, so this will allow you to change the password after the creation. So I will say test user. Sorry. I've set the password for the user here. Okay. So in this way, you can create a user and set the password for a given user as well. Okay. So in the user add command, we can provide the password within the given command itself, but there's a downside to it. So the downside is that the password will be visible in clear text. Okay. So like a user can simply see the password in clear text. So that's the reason you can or I would say it's not suggested to provide the password along with this command itself. Okay. You can use the passwd to reset the password later on after the user is created. So if you say like user add u1 hyphen p password, okay, hyphen p is used to provide the password. So if you provide that, right, then there's a command called as history, which can display the history of commands which is run by a given user. Okay. So in that event, what happens is like if you're trying, so anyone who runs that history command, right, will be able to see like what password you have set for a given user. Okay. So that is something which is not suggestible. That's the reason you create a user and then you reset the password to the user later. And when you create a user without adding the user to a specific group, then in that event, it will create a group with a name similar to the username. So here, there is a user called as U1 that is created, and a group called as U1 is also created here. So to see that information, you do a cat etc passwd. So the purpose of this cat is to open a file in a read-only mode. So this passwd is a file. So to open that file and see, we are using this cat command here. Okay. So when I run this, here you can see that u1 is the user which is there here. Okay. And then the next thing that we have here is if you want to see the group which is created as well, right? The command is cat etc group. So this will also display the group which is created here. So u1 you can see here, this u1 is the group that is created. So here when you created the user u1, right? So this 1002 is the uid, and this 1002 again is the group id associated with the user. So every user has a uid and a group id as well, or user id and group id, I would say. And this slash home, right? Slash u1, so this is the home location for a given user. So if I get into this directory cd slash home and do ls, you can see here this is the u1 user that is created here. Okay, and then here the cd slash home is there, right? So in this case, I would say that so so the cd command, what you're looking at, right? It's basically used for switching between directories. Okay, so cd slash home refers to change directory to slash home, or change to the home directory under the root user root directory here. Okay, so if I want to switch to the u1 directory again, I would do cd u1. It is permission denied because I'm logged in as EC2 user, but I can log into the or get into the EC2 directory here. So I would say EC2 hyphen user. And when I do a PWD, you can see slash home slash EC2 hyphen user. So for the EC2 user with which we are logged in, this is the home directory. Okay. And then this PWD command here refers to the present working directory. All right. So this is how you can create a user and then get the home location related to the user. So to get the home location of a given user as well, you can use the this method as well. Echo dollar home. So home is an environment variable, and echo is a statement or is a command to print. I would say any string, whatever you give, right? It can print that. So here to call a variable, right? You are using the dollar symbol and you are saying like dollar home. So when you do an echo dollar home, it will print the home directory of a given user. Okay, so that's what it prints here. So that's all for today's session, guys. So any questions from anyone?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, Jatin.
Can you give us like a PDF with all the commands you just sent us? I mean, do you have like a Word document with all these commands or like a PDF?
Right. I have it with me, so I'll share it with you. No problem. Like
Okay,
in a day or two, I'll send it to you. Okay.
okay.
Anything else from anyone? Krishna,
Also,
Nandini?
yeah,
Huh?
I have a question. Like after giving the command, it will print something, right? What
Hmm.
exactly it is? Can you give us can you give us in the PDF a screenshot of it and putting an arrow what it is exactly? So you have given reboot and all. I couldn't connect to it exactly.
Which one? The last reboot?
Yeah, it was like bit confusing. So can you give us like what exactly it is displaying and all?
Okay, that kind of document I don't have it with me, but I have a command list where it will explain it to you. Or you can
Okay.
just Google these commands. You will get some of the other blog which will return the, I would say, the exact information about a relevant command. So if you wish to like know something related to last reboot, right, just type it in Google, right? You will get a lot of blogs related to the same. Okay, they'll give you
Okay.
a lot of information related to that. Okay, so so actually they will provide more information than what I've given you in this session. All right.
Okay. Last reboot
Yeah.
in the sense here we are getting two last reboots or what?
Two last reboots. So this server was
Okay.
provisioned on Jan 9th. Okay, that was yesterday, and it was provisioned at this time, and it ran till 1 a.m. in the night. Okay, or 1 a.m. in the morning, I would say 1 a.m. 38 minutes, and overall
Okay.
it ran for 10 hours, 17 minutes, and then
Oh,
after that I started off the server again just now, and it was running for past 7 minutes.
gotcha.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone? Nandini, Rishi. Srinivas, Vamshi.
And sorry, I don't know where exactly you ran all these commands. I was not aware of this
So
tool.
yeah, I'll explain that in tomorrow's session. So basically, I'll tell you in a brief manner.
Okay,
So
perfect.
this is your AWS cloud. Okay, so this is your AWS Amazon Web Services. So here, this is an EC2 instance. So this is the server. So this is a virtual machine basically. Okay, and I have a public IP address. All right. So you can connect to these servers by using different tools like PuTTY or MobiXterm or super putty. So there are different tools that are available in the market. So you can use any of them to connect to these to this EC2 instance or SSH. Okay, so that's pretty much what I did. So, but I'll tell you like how to set up an AWS account and how to like provision an EC2 instance and how to connect to the EC2 instance. I'll explain that to you guys. Okay, fine then. So, any questions before I wrap it up here today? Anyone? Fine, guys. So we'll connect back tomorrow again at the same time. Okay. And then we'll get started with the other topics. Okay. Right. Thank you.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah. No problem. Bye.